Test 1, 2. Love is the spirit of this church. That sounds pretty good. morning. Thank you for joining us today. We are ready to begin. Welcome to this place of simple beauty and serenity as we gather this morning for this celebration of life service for our beloved friend and companion, Gordon King. I welcome all of you who are joining us here in person, as well as those who are joining us at home. If you're joining us online, if you are able, please let us know in the chat where you're joining us from. After today's service, there will be a memorial reception at the Women's Club in Bethesda, where we can continue to remember Gordon and all that he meant to us. And now, in respect of our time together, I request that we now place all of our cell phones or other electronic devices on worship mode. Thank you. If this is your first time in a Unitarian Universalist congregation and you are wondering what kind of a church this is, we want you to know that we are a part of the Congregational Protestant lineage of Christian churches. But more than a century ago, we decided that we would build our religious community on the covenantal promises we make with one another about how we respect and treat each other, rather than on uniformity of belief. So as a non-creedal religious community, we respect and honor religious wisdom and spiritual truth wherever we find it, in the many great religious traditions of the world, in nature, in literature, and in our own hearts. When we grieve, we use our memorial services as occasions to celebrate the life of our loved ones, rather than as an occasion for a proclamation of faith. We honor the fact that each of us here has brought our own spiritual understanding and beliefs about the mysteries of life and death and beyond, and will find consolation in those understandings as we work our way through our loss. So the sorrow and the joy of life weaves a tapestry of our individual lives as death gathers us into a beloved community to bid one we have known, respected, and loved, Gordon King, farewell. We have gathered to search for life's deepest meanings, to seek the comfort and the healing people offer one another, to celebrate with joy and affirmation the life of Gordon King, and to say yes to life's greatest expression, love. Because love believes all things, hopes for all things, endures all things. Love never ends. And it is our love that compels us to fashion a service of celebration, because we are glad that Gordon lived and grateful that he touched and transformed our lives and our world. It is good to be together, friends. More than anything else in the world, we need one another right now. Each of us grieves in our own way, but it is important for us to find avenues such as these to come together, not only to mourn the loss of one held dear, but also to celebrate the life of our loved one. And when we grieve together, the healing begins. Because just by being with one another gives comfort to everyone else, if only for this hour we come together as a compassionate family. It is good to remember, with smiles and laughter, as well as with tears, the person Gordon was, how he filled our world and brightened our days. Healing the hurt begins with remembering. Our memories of Gordon can never be taken from us, nor shall we ever forget. Our words are like our tears. welling in our eyes until they are too full. Then they must stream and fall. Yet we find ourselves trying to express not just our grief, but also our joyful feelings for Gordon. We remember his presence among us, his hard work and dedication, his sense of humor, his generosity, his good heart, and his indomitable spirit. So let us be brave enough and let us be wise enough today to honestly remember and bravely celebrate a human life, the life that was Gordon's life. It is good to be together in courage and wisdom, to face his death and to commemorate his life. It is good that we have come together because human life is a sacred miracle, nothing less than a miracle. As is the custom in our faith tradition, we open this sacred time with the lighting of the chalice. The flame we light is an ancient symbol of transformation, and the chalice that holds it is a symbol of the spirit of life and love and community that Gordon embodied. So as Jimmy Peterson, Gordon's nephew, comes forward to kindle the chalice in his uncle's memory, I invite us to rise in body and/or in spirit to share the words in unison that are printed in your order of celebration. Let us speak the words together. We light this chalice in loving memory of our beloved friend and spiritual companion, Gordon King, and in tribute to the love a single life can inspire. May the chalice remind us of the extravagant gift of life. May it signify the community we create in our being together and our sharing together. Thank you.
I'm going to read a piece by Rabindranath Tagore called Farewell, My Friends. It was beautiful as long as it lasted, the journey of my life. I have no regrets whatsoever, save the pain I'll leave behind. Those dear hearts who love and care, and the heavy with sleep, ever moist eyes, the smile in spite of a lump in the throat, and the strings pulling at the heart and soul. The strong arms that held me up when my own strength let me down. Each morsel I was fed was full of love. Every turning of my life, I came across good friends, friends who stood by me even when the time raced by me. Farewell, farewell, my friends. I smile and bid you goodbye. No, shed no tears, for I need them not. All I need is your smile. If you feel sad, do think of me, for that's what I'll like when you live in the hearts of those you love. Remember then, you never die.
From William Henry Channing. To laugh often and love much, to win and hold the respect of intelligent persons and the affection of little children, to earn the approbation of honest critics, and to endure without flinching the betrayal of false friends. To appreciate beauty always, whether in earth's creations of human handiwork, to have sought for and found the best in others, and to have given it oneself, to leave the world better than one found it. whether by a healthy child, a garden patch, a cheery letter, or a redeemed social condition. To have played with enthusiasm, laughed with exuberance, and sung with exultation. To go down to dust and dreams, knowing that the world is a wee bit better and that even a single life breathes easier because we have lived well. This is to have succeeded.
My Memorial by J. Fred Osterling. I am eternal, for I am a part of the universe. I know not from whence I came, nor where I go. But this I know, within me there is a spark of eternity. When I go, it will be without regret, except for the loved ones I leave behind. Yet through each of you I shall live on. Your ears shall hear the music of the wind, the song of the birds, the laughter of the people. Your eyes shall see the beauty of spring with its unfailing promise of resurrection and life. The smell of flowers, the beauty of the hills, and the wonders of the universe shall not escape you. I will be there. Life has been good to me, far beyond my expectations. I have loved and been loved. Therefore, weep not that I go, for I am a part of you, and you are a part of me, and we are an eternal part of creation in all its mystery, majesty, and glory.
The details of a person's life do not encompass the many meanings of that life, but the details are a place to begin. Gordon King was born on December 4th, 1949, to Elena and Stephen King in Ithaca, New York. He had a younger sister, Nancy, who was born in 1953. Elena was a dietitian and Steve a pilot in the Air Force when they met, and he grew up on a large dairy farm in New Hampshire. After the war, Elena worked to help Steve get his PhD in genetics. The family moved to Silver Spring, Maryland in 1960 when Steve started working at the Department of Agriculture. Gordon and Nancy were very close. They shared a deep bond together, especially after their mother's devastating death in 1963, when Gordon was 13 and Nancy was only 9 years old. They depended on each other for support at a critical point in their lives that formed a lifelong bond. They lived through, as Gordon shared at Nancy's memorial, several stepmothers and stepfamilies and remained close together. Nancy was diagnosed at age 32 with adult muscular dystrophy. Gordon deeply admired her courage, resilience, and her strong will to live life fully. He was devastated by Nancy's sudden passing in January of this year. After graduating with honors from the University of Maryland, Gordon embarked on a successful career as a real estate agent. He became a top-selling agent who loved helping people buy their biggest investment, for most, a home. His knowledge and success got the attention of a couple of his clients who invited him to join as a partner in a financial planning firm, which is where he met Pamela as a referred financial planning client. And it was love at first sight, and they were married a year later in 1984. Pamela and Gordon put down roots in a community in Darnestown in 1988 and loved living there for 31 years. They enjoyed watching sunsets together, walking their beloved dogs, cultivating Gordon's koi pond and Pamela's English knot gardens, and many perennial flower beds. They enjoyed hosting many friends and family for dinner parties at their home. Gordon was Pamela's best friend, business partner, supporter, and protector. In 1990, Gordon decided to return to real estate full-time with Pamela as his partner. They joined Long & Foster in 1998. Gordon was well known for centering his clients' interests over his own, for his deep and sincere concern, his good advice, and caring towards his clients. Gordon had many interests in life. He loved driving Corvettes. He had 10 of them. He loved vacationing and scuba diving in the Caribbean, St. Martin being his favorite. He enjoyed boating on his powerboat with friends, antiquing, their home was a living testament, and traveling around Europe with Pamela. He had a deep commitment to education for all, universal health care, eradicating poverty, and protecting our planet. He strongly believed in deeds, not creeds, and that we live on through our actions and our deeds. Gordon died on August 12, 2022, of metastatic melanoma. He was 72. He was laid to rest earlier this morning at Park Lawn Cemetery. He is survived in death by his beloved wife of 38 years, Pamela, his nephew Jimmy, and nieces Christina, Ashley, Nicole, Lisa, Jessica, and Alicia, goddaughters Margot, Malia, and Vanessa, and his many, many friends. A life well lived, a life fully lived, a life that will be missed.
Can we start it from the beginning? When I am down and oh my soul so weary, when troubles come and my heart burden be, then I am still and wait here in the silence until you come and sit a while with me. You raise me up so I can stand on mountains
Good morning. Thank you for joining us today, commemorating and celebrating Gordon King. I'm David Peterson. Thank you. Husband of Nancy Ellen, Gordon's sister. I'd like to tell you about their love and Gordon's support for our family, Nancy, Jimmy, and I. Gordon and Nancy had a special bond. They supported each other and were always there to lend an ear, a helping hand, and loved each other deeply. Gordon was 4 years old when Nancy was born. The family was living in Ithaca, New York, while their father, Steve, finished his PhD. About 3 years later, the family relocated to Indiana. Gordon was Nancy's best playmate, and when it came time to go to school, she was thrilled just to be in the same building with him. When Gordon was 11 and Nancy 7, the family moved to Maryland, where Steve took a job with the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Gordon and Nancy settled into a new life of school, friends, Sunday school, family gatherings with aunts, uncles, and cousins. Through the years, Nancy and Gordon kept close contact with each other. There we go. Thank you. The traumatic death of their mother, Elena, in November of 1963, when Gordon was 13 and Nancy was 9, turned their world on its head. A couple of weeks later, President Kennedy was assassinated, and now the world was talking about Kennedy, and Gordon and Nancy were processing the loss of their mother. Brother and sister could count on each other for love and emotional support, and over the course of their lives, they delivered for each other. Gordon's support and caring for his sister exemplified his character, empathy, and care for other people's challenges and difficulties. Gordon managed to support his sister through a very difficult domestic situation during her high school and college years, as their father went through 2 additional failing marriages and divorce cycles. Gordon took her into his apartment in Tacoma Park her last week of high school and sheltered her there through the summer. During this time, Gordon was working and financing his own education. Very importantly, he took it upon himself to advocate for Nancy, and he was able to convince his father to pay for Nancy's college. His support would continue. For example, when Nancy had a bad bicycle accident, resulting in facial injuries, stitches, and broken glasses, she had to stop working for a bit. It was ultimately Gordon who sent the money needed to replace those glasses. As college wrapped up for Nancy, Gordon again provided a landing spot for her to live in his home and helped her find the first crucial career-oriented job, working for an accounting firm. A few years later, Nancy and I were a couple. We had a great time at Gordon and Pamela's wedding, and then in 1986, Gordon was the best man for our wedding. Through the years, Gordon continued to look out for Nancy, especially her housing needs. Before we were married, he arranged a rental house for us in Bethesda, and then a couple of years later found a home for us in Wheaton. When Nancy developed muscular dystrophy, causing her to lose the ability to walk, we needed a single-level house. Gordon, with considerable help from Pamela, found a home for us in Bethesda that perfectly met our needs and more. Gordon and Pamela helped us to win the bidding competition on the house we needed, despite a double-digit number of bids. And in fact, Nancy called me up at work and said, we need to go way over the limit we had set, and you've got 5 minutes to decide. So I talked to a few friends, and they said, it's Bethesda, do it. So I called her back, and I said, okay, let's go ahead. It's a lot of money. And she said, we already did. So their partnership at work. Through the years, Nancy and Gordon kept close contact with each other via the usual phone calls, drop-in coffee visits when nearby, and dinners at their home. He was caring and concerned as Nancy's muscular dystrophy progressed, checking in regularly, learning about the disease, and supporting her fights for accessibility to places like our local BCC YMCA and Georgetown Square Shopping Center. Holidays were always a festival and a feast. Gordon's skill as a storyteller and his wry humor always kept things interesting, but the talk also served to illustrate his compassion and thoughtfulness as we discussed the ups and downs, challenges, and triumphs of life. The Easter egg hunts Gordon and Pamela put on were great fun for the kids, Jimmy, Alicia, Jessica, Grace, and even their parents. The home they made in Darnestown served as a wonderful playground and a source of many memories for our family, my son Jimmy, and the rest of the kids. After our son Jimmy was born, we got to know Uncle Gordon. Gordon had Cato, one of his golden retrievers, and I believe that inspired Jimmy to choose a golden when the time came for him to get a dog. We'd bring our dog, Fritz, to play with and be trained by Cato, which worked well up to the point where the two retrievers decided it was time to swim in the koi pond. Later, while Gordon and Pamela had their bay house, we'd visit, and the two dogs swam in the bay with Jimmy and his friend. Gordon would take us all out for a ride on the boat, which Jimmy thoroughly enjoyed and totally terrified his mother. Gordon was looking out for his nephew. Nancy and I were kind of on the fence about the wisdom of video games and all that kind of stuff for Jimmy. Gordon seemed to understand and realize that they were fun and part of the culture for a youngster these days. So one middle school Christmas, a Sony PS2 showed up at the gift exchange for Jimmy. And of course he was thrilled, and it proved to be a good social connection and introduced the friendship of gameplay, the opposite of what Nancy and I had been worried about. Good move, Gordon. About a month ago, I was fortunate to be able to visit Gordon and Pamela in their Delaware home. He and I played a round of golf at the beautiful Bayside Golf Club, where we both thoroughly enjoyed the wonderful landscaping. Gordon and Pamela gave us a tour of the area, and we had some good meals and good conversation. On the course, Gordon and I had an opportunity for a wide-ranging conversation for which I am very grateful. He knew what he was up against, and we talked about that. We talked about his sister, their lives, her recent passing. We talked about Jimmy, his life and his hopes. We talked about the people Gordon knew and was helping. We talked about his plans for the near term in managing the recurrent melanoma. He was his usual calm, thoughtful, caring self, and as easy to talk to as ever. He had the wisdom of his age and his life, and the same generous concern for others, the same great storyteller. It was a great day on the golf course and a good visit to Delaware. We also debated whether he should get a Corvette or a Tesla. He wasn't fully committed, but I'm pretty sure it was going to be a Corvette. Gordon, myself and Jimmy will miss your quiet, calm voice, your stories and humor, your good advice, and your careful listening. We'll miss your indignation at the wrongs and unfairness of the world and the reminders of your lived example that helping one person as need presents itself makes a difference. We will miss you, Gordon.
They told me to announce myself. I'm the fill-in for my sister, who decided she wanted me to speak. My role here today is to speak about Gordon, not just as a man, but what he meant to our family. Perhaps the most important thing Gordon ever did for our family was when he met my sister, who was a very successful businesswoman by then, but did not seem happy to us as her brothers and sisters and her parents. The minute they got married, she seemed happy, fulfilled, and she never looked back. Now, like all marriages, things aren't always peachy, but I would say that they were in love from the beginning to the end. He also meant a lot to me personally and to our family. We moved away, myself and Linda, who from where my parents lived as they were aging. And Pamela and Gordon, particularly Gordon on the finances and the homes and everything, was their stability while we were gone until they finally moved to Dallas. And forever, I and our family will be appreciative. Perhaps Gordon the man, how to tell it? I guess the first thing I would tell you is he had tremendous focus. And the way to illustrate that is once my wife and I lived on a golf course in Texas, and I invited Gordon and my other brother-in-law, Mark, who's a scratch golfer, down to play. And to my shock, Gordon said, "I've never played." Okay, so what the heck, we'll have fun. Gordon, from the very beginning, we told him a few tips and he had learned a few things, was doing great. We were like, whoa. and he just kept his focus. On a particular hole, he sliced the ball, and it went over a lady's head by this much, smashed a window. And we thought, that's it for the day. We went over to the cart. Gordon said, let's finish. He got back in the cart, went to play his neck. He said, where do we put the ball? We told him where. He went to do it. The lady was running down the hill. Apparently, some of the paperwork on insurance wasn't properly. He almost hit her again. We thought we were going to be arrested for attempted murder, but he never lost his focus. And he played very, very well that day. If you do that and you keep your focus, that's impressive. The other thing about Gordon is a big compassion, particularly for animals, which I happen to have too. Well, him and his dogs, and Pamela and their dogs, are legendary in the family without. Hell, I even had one stuffed. But, they're lovers. But one day I'm talking to Gordon, and he goes, well, I got to go. I got to feed an animal. Well, who? He said, oh, there's a fox. What? There's a wild fox behind our property. He's got mange. So Pamela and I are giving him mange medicine, and food. This went on for every time I'd call, we'd talk about the fox. Eventually, the fox got well, and every night when they pulled home from work, whatever, the fox was waiting for a meal. Eventually, not only that happened, but apparently the fox got married, however they do that, and brought the little kids over. So that is the measure of the man, okay? I think Gordon was a rock for Pamela. I think he was a great contributor to our family. I'm kind of a businessman, is the best way to say it, and don't always relate well to all my people. I'm not my people, my family, because I'm not as gregarious and spontaneous. Gordon was a very, very good businessman. I can speak that personally, and he's had the ups and downs just like all of us, but he always persevered. He never gave up, and that is a great businessman. Even if you fail, you get up and you keep going. Gordon never faltered from that to basically the day he died. I loved him as a brother, and my family cherished him. Thank you.
I'm Jessica. I'm Gordon's niece. I've always been told that Uncle Gordon was the first one to hold me, aside from Mom, after I was born. He was the one who carried me from the nursery. For some reason, I can't remember it personally, but I do know that it's always been a part of my birth story since the beginning of time. Since I was a Thanksgiving baby, or as the family lovingly calls it, a turkey baby, we went right from the hospital, Mom and I, to Thanksgiving dinner at Uncle Gordon and Pamela's house. So it's safe to say that from birth, Gordon was a huge part of my life. Their home became such a comfortable and familiar, important place in my heart that had Pam and Gordon still been at the Darnestown house, I probably would have gotten married there, just like my mom and so many others had done before. Throughout the years, I was lucky enough to spend countless holidays with them. Most of my vacations were spent with them, whether it was at the Bay House, at the Ocean City condo, or at their beautiful Delaware condo. I can still remember Uncle Gordon letting me steer the boat, but not actually steer the boat because it was very expensive. I also got to experience Uncle Gordon as a realtor. He helped my husband and I buy our first home, and that was a really great experience. I got to experience him as an employer when I would cater parties or help with open houses. So I was really fortunate to see so many different elements of Uncle Gordon and how he thrived and was so wonderful in all of them, not just as an uncle, but in so many different ways. To pick a favorite memory is pretty much impossible because there's so many to choose from. So I'll just say the common thread of every memory is great conversation, a lot of laughter, and usually some red wine. So I know Uncle Gordon is looking down on us and spending time with Nancy and his dogs that had left before him, and I'm glad to have him looking out for all of us. Thanks.
Good morning. My name is Richard Blaylock, and I had the privilege of being one of Gordon's best friends. I met Gordon shortly after he and Pamela went back into real estate with Prudential. My company had a farming program that he adopted, did well for him, and over the years, he and I spent an inordinate amount of time either together or on the phone together once we moved to Florida 20 years ago. Gordon, someone mentioned earlier the fact that Gordon enjoyed going to Europe. Gordon's first trip to Europe was with my wife and myself and Pamela. We were on the old original Love Boat, which was a old princess ship. But we went from Venice to Barcelona and had one of the most wonderful trips you could imagine. Didn't spend every day together. In fact, oftentimes could be 2 or 3 days when we didn't do tours together, but we'd get together in the evening for dinner and discuss what we had seen that day. It was just a situation where we could talk about almost anything. We realized there's certain things we couldn't discuss, and we never brought them up. But for the most part, we could talk about anything. Gordon, when he got sick this last time, kind of knew that things were not going to go the way he had hoped. Not long after he was diagnosed, he asked me if I would come up and speak at his funeral. Sure. Never thought anything about it. A good friend of mine in Alabama has just written a book, Live Like You're Dying. And in the book and in the series that he's got that goes with it, there's testimonials, there's a video, they're making a movie about it at some point in time. He talks about the fact that none of us know that we've got tomorrow. And, you know, I think that if Gordon could come back and say anything, it would be, live like there's no tomorrow. In the way you love, your relationship with your Holy Spirit, with your God, live like there's no tomorrow. I have been very, very fortunate to have him in my life for the last roughly 33 years. My sister passed away a couple of years, 3 years after we moved to Florida, and Gordon was on the phone consoling me. I was doing the same for him this past winter when Nancy passed away. I ask all of you to seriously consider what I just said. Live like there's no tomorrow. Make every day count, because we got no guarantees. Anyway, I thank you for your time. He was a great friend. God knows he'll be missed. And I'm sure, like Earl said, somewhere, he's looking down on all of us, and he'll stay close to you, Pam.
Thank you for your wonderful reflections and remembrances of Gordon. I invite us now to rise in body or in spirit to sing together the hymn Amazing Grace. The words for the hymn will be on screen.
fears were laid. We know that grace appear the hour I first believed. Through many dangers, toils, and snarls, I have already come. 'Twas grace that taught me live thus far, and grace will lead me home. When we've been there 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun, we've no less days to sing God's praise. The hour we've just begun. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. 'Twas blind, but now I see.
You may be seated. Thank you, Alicia. At this time, we will have a few memories or recollections, a story that some of you may have and wish to share. If you do, we will have time for maybe 2 or 3 brief, and I emphasize brief, reflections. So I invite you to come forward. Please introduce yourself and then share briefly a story or a memory about Gordon.
Hi, my name's Maureen, and I'm longtime neighbors of Pamela and Gordon and friends of their family. I have one really, well, I think it's very funny. I hope you remember this story, Pamela. My husband Shadi and I went to Puerto Rico with them on vacation. And one night, and Gordon had rented the minivan, and one night we went to a very fancy, wonderful restaurant. So we pulled up and they had valet parking, and the 4 of us walked in, and they sat us at this most gorgeous table, and we had this fabulous meal, so great that we were probably there like almost 3 hours, to the point where the restaurant was getting ready to close. And we walked out to the lobby, and the valet men were standing with their heads down because they had locked the key in the minivan and left it running, and it was in the middle of the road. And they didn't, for 3 hours, they didn't come and tell us. And if they had, we would have been able to like do something. Pamela and Shadi and I could not contain our laughter. Like, to me, that was the funniest thing, but it was not at all funny to Gordon. He took it very seriously, and he was very upset. And I don't think we got home till 1 or 2 in the morning, because we had to, in Puerto Rico, you don't even know who to call to get this taken care of. But anyway, for us, that was funny, and it was almost made funnier because Gordon didn't think it was funny. So there's that. And then, as everybody has mentioned, how loving and caring he was to his goddaughters and nieces and nephew. He was equally kind to all of our children, Noel's children, my children. He adopted them almost as his own. And my daughter Sarah loved Barney as well. In fact, that's how we met in the first neighborhood, with Barney. And she still is an animal lover. And I never let them have a dog, so they always got Pamela and Gordon's dog friends. And then one time they went on vacation and left, was it Cato with us? Cato. And it was snowing. I don't know where you went. Maybe that was the cruise or to the islands. So it had snowed, and my girls went out with the neighbor kids, and they were sledding, and Cato had the time of his life. And I think they got home late at night, and we had put the key under the mat because you couldn't live another night without him. I think we were maybe in bed already. And so Gordon came in to get Cato, and Cato growled at him. And he was so upset with that. So he never let us take care of Cato again. And then when my daughter Sadie was in high school and she signed up for a photography class, she didn't have a single lens, I guess they call it SLR camera, single lens reflex. And Gordon gave her his original camera. And she took pictures the whole class and all through college with that camera, and she still has it. And she's very grateful to Gordon for helping nurture her creative spirit. So.
The philosopher George Santayana wrote, "To see things under the form of eternity is to see them in their historic and moral truth, not as they seemed when they passed, but as they remain when they are over. When a person's life is over, it remains true that he lived. It remains true that he was one sort of person and not another. In the infinite mosaic of history, that bit has its unfading color and its perpetual function and effect. A person who understands himself under the form of eternity knows the quality that eternally belongs to him, and knows that he cannot wholly die, even if he would. For when the movement of his life is over, the truth of his life remains and endures." So I invite us to think about Gordon in this way. What is the truth of his life that remains? And as I heard you share, I realized the many truths of his life that remain and endure. There is the truth of his love for Pamela. They loved each other deeply and completely. Pamela was his love, his wife, his best friend, his business partner, his spiritual companion, and his caregiver. Then there's the truth of his love of family. He was a doting brother, a caring husband, a loving uncle and godparent. There's the truth of his long and distinguished career as a very successful businessman, a real estate agent. He was a wonderful colleague and a mentor and a caring person towards all his clients. Then there's the truth of his being a steadfast and deep friend to many. And there is the truth of his deep love for dogs. You know, I didn't know Gordon, but when Pamela mentioned that he loved dogs and had golden retrievers, I was all set. And today happens to be the National Day of the Dog, so it is fitting that we are celebrating and remembering Gordon on this day. And there are other truths as well that we heard: his love of corvettes, the boat, his love of travel, all those are truths about Gordon, and many, many more. But there is more to Gordon than just the truths. There is the spirit of Gordon that in so many ways is imbued and manifest in these many truths that continue to impact our world and impact our lives. And it is that spirit that we remember, that we will miss, but we know will continue to endure in our own lives. Friends, we have come together today as a community of family and friends. We have remembered Gordon, the way he was and the way he touched our lives. We have mourned and will continue to mourn his death. But we have also begun here to relieve that hurt with this service of celebration and remembrance, in which we not only remembered but also celebrated with joy our memories of Gordon. How true are the words of Khalil Gibran: "When you are sorrowful, look again in your heart, and you shall see that in truth you are weeping for that which has been your delight." We are thankful for the gifts of life, even though our individual lives are rounded by a sleep. We're thankful for Gordon's life. We are glad to have seen his face, to have been influenced by his personality and ways, to have loved him and to have been loved by him in return. We are thankful that Gordon's deeds continue to influence those he touched and will continue to influence our larger world, for we are all woven into one tapestry. We are thankful that time lessons and memories heal the grief we feel at death, bringing ever deeper understandings and a more loving and gentler acceptance of him who has passed away. We are thankful that occasions such as these remind us of our own humanness, frailties, foibles, and that we are more than just the sum total of our faults or our achievements. We're thankful for the comfort we give one another, which has grown among us this hour. We are thankful that life continues, passing from generation to generation. We are thankful for the love that never dies, that never lets us go, lets us down, nor lets us off the hook, that endures through life and death. And now, as we remember and say a final farewell to one held dear, let these words from May Sarton be our benediction. Now, Voyager, lay here your dazzled head. Come back to earth from air, be nourished, not with that light on light, but with this bread. Here, close to earth, be cherished, mortal heart. Hold your way deep as roots push rocks apart to bring the spurt of green up from the dark. Where music thundered, let the mind be still. Where the will triumphed, let there be no will. What light revealed, now let the dark fulfill. Here, close to earth, the deeper pulse is stirred. Here, where no wings rush and no sudden bird, but only heartbeat upon beat is heard. Here, let the fiery burden be all spilled, the passionate voice at last be calmed and stilled, and the long yearning of the blood fulfilled. Now, Voyager, come home to rest. Here on the long-lost country of Earth's breast, lay down your fiery vision and be blessed, be blessed. May it be so. Amen. I invite us to remain seated for the postlude that we are about to hear. And after the service, the family invites you to join them for a memorial reception at the Women's Club in Bethesda. The information is in your order of service, where we will gather and continue to remember Gordon and the many ways in which he touched and transformed our lives. Thank you all for joining us. And now we close our time.
The heart does go on.
We love you, Gordon.